Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm delighted to be joined by Stevie Mullen for the European game, the Matchday coverage. Stevie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
It's always an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio, and we have the team lineup. Any shocks in Lenny's lineup?
Yeah, for me, I would have had Julian in. I can't get out of my mind last year against Cluj when you had Julian on the bench and we crashed out. Beaton's been playing well, but he's not our centre half, and I can't believe that we've got a £7 million centre half sitting on the bench and we're going to play a game of this magnitude.
It's unusual when you think about it. 3 weeks ago, no one would have picked Beaton in the team. Even when he was selected, I was surprised that El Hamid wasn't selected ahead of him. But he's had 3 excellent games in a row, and that was one of the things looking at the team. Julian coming back from injury, would he start? Would he be on the bench? Lenny's benched him. Do you think that will come back to haunt him?
I certainly hope not. Beaton's been playing well, and it's not any criticism of Beaton. It's just I think a game of this importance that I think you should play your best player. Julian's worth £7 million centre half. Yeah. He's our biggest buy defensively.
Yes.
So I would have had him in the team. I think the consequences of getting knocked out are too grave to just give a guy a game because he's played a couple of good games. Julian's not been out for 3 months, he's been out for a fortnight.
He has been just a couple of games. He's only missed a few games, Stevie. And I think when you're looking at that bench, I'm going to have to mention it. Lee Griffiths is on there.
Good for Lee. I'm delighted to see him back in the fold. You know, if we've got a fit Lee Griffiths, then he enhances our squad. My only concerns about him, we've been talking previously, is he's missing 2 big tranches of the season. Yeah. And we can't afford that when we've got so much to play for.
You know, we mentioned him quite a few weeks ago, and it looked as though he was completely out of the picture at that point. He's obviously been working hard behind the scenes, Stevie, shown enough of an attitude to get back into the first team squad initially, back onto the bench. Now he's selected on the European bench, which is a smaller bench than the domestic one. And you just hope, you really do hope. I said earlier on today that I would have preferred to have 2 strikers, because obviously El Yunusi has played well as well, as has Beaton, but he's not an out-and-out striker. And I do like the idea of Celtic playing with 2 proper out-and-out strikers. Griffiths is that man. If 10 minutes to go, we're still sitting at nothing each, as we were this time last week, or even in extra time when we're looking for a game changer, I think that's maybe playing on the gaffer's mind by putting Griffiths right in there. We've got 2 strikers on the bench, but Griffiths for me would be the boy. If you want somebody to run somebody ragged, maybe a half-time or 50, 60 minutes in, Klamala. But if you're really going to try and turn the game round, Griffiths is your man.
It's a ready-made partnership because it was tried and tested last year, and it was pretty much the catalyst for how we performed. You know, when Lee Griffiths came back into the team with Edward, you know, the night down at Rugby Park last year, sensational performance for him, and they kicked on. You know, Lee Griffiths is a top player and a really lovely guy. We just hope that he can settle down, whatever is troubling him off the park, and maybe he is now injury free, that he can kick on. If we've got a fit Lee Griffiths, we're a stronger squad and a better squad with him in it.
We definitely are. Now the squad itself, it might change over the next few days. We've been hearing a lot of speculation flying around. Certainly a lot of that was knocked back by Neil Lennon, who said that, you know, there's certain rumours around the likes of Christie that were not true. Christie's back in. I was concerned he might have been injured, and I had put Encham in there instead. If you were choosing between Christie, Encham or Turnbull tonight, who would you have gone for?
I would have had Turnbull in that. I thought his was a sensational second half the other day. But I've got no complaints about Ryan Christie starting the game in front of him. He's tried and tested. David Turnbull's still a wee bit short. I think it would maybe cast a wee bit doubt about Encham staying. I don't think he would be happy staying it. But if you go back just a few weeks ago, you know, and I know Neil's come out and says about the players, Neil sort of started this after the Ferencváros game about agitators within his squad.
Yeah.
So he started the rumours and people have built up on that. But again, if we're talking the frustrations of Celtic fans not being able to get the game is sometimes how notice board and social media is getting it, because they're not travelling back in the car, they're not getting their frustrations out during the game, they're having to do it sitting in the house. And they're getting, so they've nobody to talk to and shout at, so they're doing it through a keypad.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And now, what you said about the agitators and those that might have been kind of angling for a move for 6 months, I think it was, that Neil Lennon said. It just opens up the rumour mill, doesn't it? Now, we try and stay away from that. If we hear some information that's coming in from a decent source, we'll share it. Obviously, you were the first to suggest that Shane Duffy might sign for Celtic, Stevie. I also think that you were the first to mention Ryan Sessegnon. But it is going to open the doors for some of the fractions of the media who want to get stuck into Celtic, you know. So you've got a situation here where just about every time you've got a big game coming up, I'm expecting to hear this one wants to leave, dressing room, rift, etc. We've got a big game coming up against Rangers. That's the kind of thing I expect to see.
I've had that since I was a kid, Paul, so it makes no difference to me, and it really shouldn't make any difference to Celtic players or the fans. We should just treat it with the contempt it deserves. But bringing in Ryan Sessegnon, I think he would be a sensational player to have on the left-hand side of the park. My concern would be, I think, if we bring him in, then we would have to let one of our current midfielders go to finance that deal. So you're letting a permanent guy go to bring in a loan player. Again, football-wise, my concern would be is if we get enough defensive-minded midfield players to cover a midfield having Sessegnon and Frimpong, because there's absolutely no defensive cover with the two young men. No, that's all about the attack, isn't it? And I think someone made the point earlier, which was interesting. We were kind of expecting Rogic to go for $4 million, which was a cut price deal at this stage of his career. And a lot of Celtic fans were resigned to the fact that he was going to go. Perhaps looking at Sessegnon, because around about that time we first heard of the interest, that was a few weeks back, it might have been that $4 million was going to finance the loan fee, at least. Do you think there's any relevance that Tom Rogic's not on the squad tonight?
Well, I'm looking at the fact that there's two strikers on the bench, and I wouldn't have expected Griffiths and Klimala to be on there. I thought perhaps someone like Rogic might have been there or thereabouts. What you've got there is you've got El Hamid for your defensive cover, and you've got Julian, so you're kind of covered there defensively, particularly when El Hamid can play a couple of positions at the back. Klimala and Griffiths up front, Turnbull and Cham in the midfield. I'm surprised we've got two strikers.
But Rogic, if he's he's been in this matchday squad the last couple of weeks, not really getting in there, getting on the park. His time's up, you know. And Tom Rogic, even when he gets in, he builds up to get to for him. He doesn't ever come in and hit the ground running. It's 4, 5, 6 games. We don't have time to give him that to come back this season. You know, as you guys have said, you know, it's 5 tournaments this year. My view on that is, see if you can't ride 2 horses, don't be in a rodeo.
No.
You know, you've got to be able to perform for everything.
Definitely.
You know, you can't pick and choose what you're going to do. You need to be ready just to crack on as soon as you get the opportunity.
Are you surprised that Sorrow not been on the bench tonight?
No, particularly. I was pretty impressed with him the other day when he came on. But this is a game the night that we can't take chances. You know, the financial implications of the night are absolutely incredible. You know, if you go, we get £280,000 for winning last week against Riga. If you lose to Sarajevo, you get €300,000. If you get through tonight, the group stage gives you €2,920,000. So that's what you're getting for winning the game tonight. You know, you're 1-4 with a bookie, Sarajevo's 8-1. We really can't afford it. It would be an absolute disaster if we want to get through this tie. And I really don't have any doubt we should, but we need to get through. It's imperative to us.
This is the thing. Last week we were sitting here and, you know, I predicted personally 3-0 Celtic. Never thought it was going to be a walkover. Certainly did not. I think Celtic controlled the game. We had most of the possession, Stevie, but we're sitting here with 10 minutes to go. You know, still nail-biting stuff. Frimpong continually created chances, the third of which was put away by El Yunusi, which is why he started against Hibs and is starting tonight. If we're sitting here with 10 minutes to go at nothing each, what does the gaffer do?
I think Griffiths would have to be on the park at that stage. You know, what do you do? You can't play to get extra time, because when you're in that, then it's anybody can do anything. You need to be prepared to gamble. Last week, again, it's James Forrest's misfortune. It's Neil Lennon's fortune that James gets injured. Frimpong comes on and changes the game. You know, and probably changed that young man's season, because up until last week, he's playing set fiddle to James. Now, probably he's in front of him, because his enthusiasm, again, you need to temper the opposition. He's weak defensively. You know, and it's no a criticism of his for anybody. Oh, he was brilliant. Going for offensively, he was outstanding, but he's got deficiency in defence. The one in the weekend that get put between him and the centre half, he's out of position.
Yeah.
You know, his pace is helping him out, but if you're going to be offensive, I wouldn't tell him to get back. I would make sure the midfield worked across and just tell him, and if it's going to be Sessegnon in the future, just stay up and keep the fullbacks. You engage them, don't let them engage you.
And make sure the cover is there.
Yeah.
When we're also looking around at the fact that Encham's on the bench, we've heard rumours about Christie. We're ticking along into the last few days of the kind of transfer window. We're going to be covering the final day, the transfer window, quite extensively. And, you know, I'm not expecting a great deal to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we shelled out for one player, but we lost one. What's your thoughts on that, Stevie?
If it was me, and again, this is only my opinion, I don't have any inside information, I would take Sessegnon at the expense of Encham. And I think Encham's a smashing player, but if we're not going to use him as much as he should be getting used, then I think we could cash in and be able to finance that deal. If we can be a wee bit stronger on the left-hand side of the park, I think that we are probably shoo-ins to win the domestic trophies again.
It's the one area of the pitch that we do have an embarrassment of riches, if you like. You know, that's the one area that you would rather not lose any of these players because it's a strong squad we've got. You're looking at that bench. It's a very strong bench, Stevie. Just in case we are up against it, you've got players on there that can change the game. But it is the one area that if you're going to lose a player, that's the area that you would be far more confident in losing a player. We don't want Ayer to go because then you're having to buy somebody else in, or you're going with a slimline defensive back line. We're back into the situation we were in before Duffy arrives. If you lose Ayer, we're still looking for a centre half. Up front, yeah, we've got Griffiths, Klamala, we've got a Yeti to come back. But again, I don't think you can run the whole season just with three strikers.
No,
you need to have Eddie. Yeah,
four.
Definitely. Christie, I'd like to see Christie stay, even if it means that we're going to eventually get less money for him, or if his contract runs out entirely. Encham, there's definitely, he's an asset, isn't he? And if you push him to agree to a deal either down south, although I've got to say, I've not heard any concrete interest from Southampton or West Brom, which are the two clubs quoted. I would expect more interest from France.
But we can't be the only club in the world who keeps all our players and nobody ever gets transferred. You know, you can't be top heavy. If you've got a sellable asset, which Encham certainly is, and his agent will know what Celtic are looking for, then he engages other clubs. And if Celtic have been in contact with Tottenham and say, listen, what's the deal for Sessegnon? Then they work that out, and then Peter Law would get involved and go, listen, if we bring that in for Encham, that finances a deal, and we make up a wee bit of what we've lost for the Champions League money. It won't cover it, but this is such an important season. We need to cover all bases for ourselves. No worry about anybody else, solely on Celtic Football Club. We need to be ready to challenge all these things. A left-sided player like Ryan Sessegnon would make us stronger for these challenges.
Oh, definitely. I imagine looking at that lineup just now and having that balance, both sides. Because I think what we're talking about earlier today, and I'm going to go to some of the comments that are coming through on the social media, Stevie, is go out and get an early goal. And once you've got that early goal, they've got to go toe-to-toe you, and that's when Celtic are at their most dangerous. Because last week we saw it with Riga, didn't we? They defended resolutely. It's up to Celtic then. Thankfully, we had a man in Frimpong who was on fire last week, and he was the guy that continually had them on the back foot. He created 3 brilliant chances at the end. Thankfully, El Yunusi scored with a cracking finish in the last minute, and you and I were diving about here. Sometimes though, Frimpong's not going to have that night. We've seen it last season. Sometimes he's getting kicked, he's getting doubled up on, he has an off night, and then you're looking for the left hand side to do something similar. At the moment, we don't have that.
No, I've got to be honest, you know, I watch the shows intently when I'm not here, and over the weekend with your guests, and they're really, really articulate in the way they speak. I was gobsmacked at the praise that Greg Taylor got for being able to have one cross and one good defensive tackle. He's playing for Celtic Football Club, one of the biggest clubs in the world. He's not a plumber. He plays for Celtic. You can't remember one tackle. You've got to get more if you're going to be playing for Celtic in that position.
Tonight, the ball seems to spend a lot of time over on the left, Stevie. I would expect Taylor to get a lot of the ball this evening. And it gets to that point where the amount of assists, for example, is highlighted time and time again with any of the players, because people are doing these stats in a big, big way. And obviously, there's been a few comments made by several managers in relation to them, Neil Lennon included, because obviously he's backing up Brown's inclusion with stats. Because obviously they're important, they are important, but people will show that Taylor has set up X amount of goals, but with the amount of the ball he's got, you'd be expecting far more balls into that area for the likes of Eddie and El Yunusi.
I think he gets so much of the ball because Ayer's the dominant centre back in possession.
Yeah, I absolutely
and
do.
He's playing towards that side.
Yep.
Beaton's come in and he's very comfortable on the ball. But even when he gets the ball, it's as if he always drifts the ball to the left. You know, the amount of games that we watched, the St Mirren game, and Duffy's trying to play all the balls to the left.
Yeah.
You know, is that why he's getting so much of the ball? If Frimpong gets it, and I thought it was really interesting on Sunday when David Turnbull came onto the park, our established players were more than happy to engage him with the ball and let him play, which shows that he's a good player.
Absolutely, they've got that trust, that belief in him, Stevie. Another thing, another part of the game against Riga, and you saw it from the angle, the Celtic TV angle, as it is, Barkas, Christie Frimpong. You know that Christie is also an architect of that type of play, so he can get the ball out. You've seen him doing it with Taylor, but nearer the end of the game, he decided that the best out ball was Frimpong. I would expect, right from the kick-off, Christie to be utilised in that right wing.
Well, expose Frimpong against the fullback. When he came on last week, he was going by that guy for fun. The guy starts getting scared. So Frimpong knows he's getting better. If we start at a high tempo tonight, no play ourselves into the game. Start at high tempo, push them back. Let's see what they can do. If you allow them to, they'll probably watch the game for last week and realise how they can frustrate Celtic. It's going to be a more difficult game for us. But we get at them nice and early, get behind them with Frimpong and even Taylor and getting the ball across. You get the early goal, everything changes, the dynamics change.
We were calling for weeks, Stevie, ever since you revealed to the world that Shane Duffy was a signing target. We really wanted him in. It was brilliant when he came in and he said everything right, and he's a Celtic man, and we love that. We love that at Celtic. We're sometimes over sentimental at times, but it's great to have people like that in at the club. And I think he's performed really well, scored a few goals. He wasn't at his best against Hibs. Is that a concern for you?
Pointed out a few weeks ago that this was going to be a new experience for Shane Duffy. I don't just mean coming to the club, but playing for a team that had that much ball.
Yeah.
So is he maybe just turning off a wee bit mentally? He's only getting challenged 3 or 4 times a game domestically, where if he's playing for Brighton in the English Premier League, he's probably getting attacked 70% of the game. So he was always on his toes. Is he just getting a wee bit lackadaisical because he's no used to having so much possession that he's got sometimes nothing to do for maybe 5 minutes?
Now, I like your point, actually, going back to a point you made earlier, and I've written it down here, Stevie. The whole dynamic of supporting this football club, or any football club, has changed dramatically. And it seems as though, although the place is a toxic place at times in any case, it seems as though a lot of the comments on social media have been ranked up a level of vitriol, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, and we see a bit of it on here, but to be honest, we spoke about this earlier, the vast majority of the comments coming in here are well measured and balanced. Often we would love to go through a lot more of them. Sometimes maybe 10 or a dozen of them are similar, so we'll maybe pick one of them out. And obviously, if the panel are chatting away, we don't always want to cut in. But I do think there has been an increase in the level of kind of vitriolic abuse at times. Neil Lennon's came in for it. We've seen some of the Celtic outlets, you know, the alternative outlets getting stuck in. I was critical after the Ferencváros game. I think entitled to be. I think that we lost the game, and we're now looking here at Ferencváros, the draw at 4 o'clock, you know, sitting here a wee bit jealous and in envy of the draw, and looking at some of the blockbuster ties that Ferencváros and others have got. But we are where we are now, and I think that we try and do it in as balanced a manner as possible, certainly on a Celtic state of mind, Stevie. So when we're looking at some of the comments coming in, we get criticised for sitting on a fence sometimes. I don't think we do that, certainly not deliberately. After tonight, you know, I think there's going to be a huge sense of relief if Celtic come in. You know, I'd love it to be a 3-0. I'll take a 1-0. I can go through that again as we did last week, and I'll take that. But after tonight, do you think, in terms of that kind of level, that it might settle down a wee bit?
Well, as I said to you earlier, Sarajevo is the capital of Bosnia-Herzegovina. In 1914, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand was killed there. That was a catalyst for the First World War. If we get knocked out tonight, expect Third World War on social media. The fallout from that would be absolutely incredible.
It would.
So we need to just get through that. If we get through this, then hopefully things calm down. But the greatest thing about the Celtic fans is their passion for the club.
Absolutely.
So if something goes well, we're high. Some of the best experiences of your life, your emotions will come through being a Celtic fan. But obviously some of your darkest days as well. So guys are always entitled to opinion. Fortunately, the vast majority of your viewers all seem to be sensible guys. The opinions come in. You might not agree with them all, but they're well balanced and thought out. So I think your show is absolutely fine with the people who watch it.
Oh, I agree with you. And it's great that they get involved, especially if, like a couple of times this week, I'm flying solo for any reason and I'm relying on the input. One last point. You told us about Shane Duffy, Stevie. You told us about Ryan Sessegnon before it was on Sky Sports. Alan Campbell.
Yep.
You also name dropped Alan Campbell a few weeks ago.
Yep, Alan Campbell's a very good player. Would he be ready to come in? I think he would be somebody that you could buy currently because he's not got long left in his contract and loan him out to somebody else, even back to Motherwell for a season to continue his progress. But I think he's somebody we should seriously monitor. Yeah,
because we've got Aberdeen and Hibs, I think, looking at him. And I don't compare the two players, but the situation could be similar to McGinn going from St Mirren to Hibs, and then a few years down the line, you're looking at a transfer fee like the Turnbull transfer fee. So why not buy him for 200-300 grand?
And Neil Lennon's got great access to his abilities, but just asking David Turnbull, what do you think of him? He played beside him. He was the guy allowed David Turnbull to go and play. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, let's have a look at some of the comments coming through on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe. We're on our way to 3,000 subscribers, Stevie, which is quite a lot when you consider a couple of months ago we only had 400 or 500. So thanks everybody for your support. Joe Porter, who gets involved in most of the broadcast, welcome back, Joe. Reckons it'll be 2-0 to Celtic. McGregor and Christie. What do you think?
Again, if you're going back to the performance at the weekend, I think if we were able to hit the heights, I think it should be at least 3-0.
3-0 was my suggestion earlier on. I went for Edouard, again, safe bet. But the more I speak about Shane Duffy, I'm now looking at maybe a Shane Duffy 3-0. You'd get good odds in that, wouldn't you?
You certainly would, as say, but I thought David Turnbull's delivery for set pieces at the weekend was outstanding.
Yeah. Yep.
Which would obviously help your bet if Shane Duffy's going to be a guy. Sometimes But delivery for set pieces, if Ryan Christie's doing it, isn't the best, so that could maybe temper that wee bit. I think anybody should be able to take a corner.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Philip DeMarco, a win is a win, so let's hope for one. Ferencvaros made the group stages. They certainly did. And is it a group of death? It looks like a tough group they're in. Also, Joe Porter follows it up by saying good luck to them. They got Barca. So Henrik Larsson's Barcelona will be facing Ferencvaros.
But can't take us that we'd have been in the same group, because I think we'd have been in pot 3.
Pot 3, yeah.
So there's no saying that would have been our group.
I know, but some of the groups look box office, don't they?
But that's what you want to do. You want to test yourself at the highest level.
Absolutely.
The Europa League's fine, but we want to be testing ourselves at Champions League level.
I agree with you. And I thought last season, and I said this, the progress we kind of showed, it was a huge disappointment when Copenhagen put us out, Stevie, because every time we get put out, people might think, you're always saying you were better than the team that put you out. But we know the capabilities of the Celtic side, and we know that the Ferencvaros result, right, you're looking at that as a lost opportunity. I think it was the same last season with Copenhagen. It's been the same recently with AEK Athens. You're looking at situations and you think to yourself, had the team been settled, had the players come in that wee bit earlier, then we'd be looking at a completely different kind of view in terms of European football. But as it stands at this moment in time, we're kind of clinging on to dear life tonight. It's a one-off game. I went into the game last season against Sarajevo fully confidence. I thought there would be no issues whatsoever in overcoming.
But this year and last year, the players were in situ. We just choose not to play them.
Yeah.
That's a difference. If the guys are there, play them. You know, last year we were looking for Julian and Bolingoli. This year we were looking for a centre forward. We didn't get any of them.
No, you're right. Bolingoli, there's a wee blast for the past already. Good evening, gents. That's from Tosh Bear Grills Junior Malone. Hey, you know, good evening to you as well. And another shout out from Barca Boy. Great to hear you. You've got the nerves coming through already. Philip DeMarco reminds us that Ferencvaros also got Juve. So it's an easy enough kind of group for them. So they'll be up against the likes of Messi and Ronaldo. Yeah, fantastic. Joe Porter, maybe it's strange to say, but Beaton is our best centre-back. You agree with that, Stevie?
I really don't, no. But Joe's entitled to the opinion the same as everybody else. I certainly don't think he's anywhere near our best centre-back.
Mm-hmm. I think when you go back to last season, the frustration everybody felt was that we had £10 million worth of new talent sitting on a bench and we're bouncing out of Europe. We've now got Julien. How fit is he? Well, you would hope you're maybe no match fit, because you only become match fit by playing matches, as the name would suggest, but you're fit enough to sit on a bench. So therefore, you know, if one of our centre-halves gets injured in 5 minutes, you're match fit, because you're playing just about the whole game, aren't you? Because you're coming on at that point.
We've only got 3 centre-backs at the club.
Yeah.
Aya is a midfielder. Beaton's a midfielder. So you've got Duffy, Julien and El Hamid. You're your 3 centre-backs. The other 2 are midfielders playing at centre-back.
See, Aya, again, going back to the point we made with Encham, he's the one that when you're looking at the speculation, there's some substance to it, because Maldini confirmed that he was part of a shortlist. The rest of them, there's not really any substance to that. What happens if we get a big bid at the closing stages and Aya is the boy that goes? Would you be concerned for the rest of the season, Stevie?
I really would be. And you know my opinion on Christopher Aya, I don't think he's the greatest defender I've ever seen. I think he's good linking the players. Said the other day, you got all the bonuses without the defensive cover. We can't afford to lose him unless we've got somebody else to replace him. And if you leave it to the last minute and it's one of these 10 to 12 deals and we don't bring anybody in, we're weaker than what we should be.
I still think, you know, I mentioned again, maybe I lack a wee bit of invention with my transfer targets because they're all ex-Celtic players. But I still think Benkovic on loan would be a good enough bit of cover for us. In any case, I just think, going back to what you said there, yeah, we're playing Beaton in there. He's in there on the fact that he's played 3 games. 2, I thought he was the coolest player on the park. Outshone by Frimpong, who had the game of his life against Riga. But I would still feel better having an out-and-out centre-half, another one at the club. Now, I know we brought in Duffy, but we know how things can happen in terms of a couple of injuries. We're already playing games this season with no recognised striker in the starting 11.
But it's again, when we were looking for a manager, I heard millions of people saying Steve Clarke. Ryan Porteous is now in the Scotland squad.
Yeah.
You know, Ryan Porteous is available for a bag of boys. You know, so if you're stuck, is he going to be the greatest player? No, he's no. But Steve Clarke, who a lot of Celtic fans wanted to be the manager, has been called into the Scotland squad. I know that's not the greatest accolade playing for Scotland, but it's good as you're going to get in Scotland.
Now, a few more points before we go for kick-off, Stevie. Sean Ross, some comments on here are discussing sad people out there. Sean, what I would say to that is, whilst they're coming through, I can block the users. I can block them live and they won't comment again. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, we get so many comments that there's a scroll bar, and before you know it, I might have missed anything that was of concern. So please flag them up and tell me who it is and I'll block them, because we don't want any of that kind of nonsense on this page. It's all about Celtic. I can guess the kind of comments that are being made. I've seen a few of them. But if I missed them, Sean, please let me know who it is. I don't mind the fact that you're clipping on them, because I'd much rather you did, and we'll just get them blocked. And it's for the best, really. Stephen T agrees with you, Stephen. Once Julian is fit, Beaton drops out. And Gordon Adams on YouTube states that Shane Duffy is the best centre-back we've had since Elliott. Paul Elliott. Heady days, Paul Elliott, eh?
Better than Van Dijk? I didn't think so.
No, I don't actually think. I was given my team of the decade. We were looking at, you know, the 9 in a row team, and I had this concept that imagine we had kept players for longer than the 3-year plan, and the team we could have put together would have been something that would have done something of note in Europe. Van Dijk at the back, Wanyama in midfield, etc. You get the idea, and it would have been a really strong side. And Colin Watt, who hopefully is watching this, and we spoke about it yesterday, picked Beaton at centre-half. This was before he came back into the team. Beaton at centre-half.
Everybody is entitled to their opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Brilliant.
Who would have been your partner for Van Dijk then?
Well, this was the thing. I went for a partnership, I think. Somebody might want to listen to the podcast. And I went for a partnership rather than two individuals. So my partnership was Van Dijk and Denier. A lot of people have said to me that Denier looked better because, listen, I'd look better if I was playing with Van Dijk. I get that. But I just think together they worked really well. He was good for a goal. He was good at set pieces. And I would have liked to have seen more effort when his career was kind of like meandering along to the likes of Sunderland, because he's now out of our kind of price range, isn't he?
Good player, Jason Denier. Do you think Van Dijk is now a better player in the Celtic supporters' mind because he's what he's achieved since he left Celtic?
Yeah, in a way I do. I mean, I remember watching him and thinking myself that, you know, he could play anywhere on the pitch. It got to the point, with me, Stevie, it got to the point where I think he became a bit lax, which happens in all fields if you become too relaxed, because maybe I'm not saying it becomes too easy, but you're comfortable in the role. So he was by far and away the best player in Scottish football. You know,
he became a better professional since he left Celtic,
yeah,
didn't he?
Definitely. I think Ronnie Dyler said that on the podcast that we did with him, was there was a few things he had to improve on in terms of his lifestyle. And you look at him now, and everything, obviously, he has become that 24-hour athlete that Ronnie Dyler wanted him and others to be. But my centre-half partnership was Van Dijk and Denier, with a notable mention for Boyata. Who would make up your back two if it was a central defensive partnership?
I think I'd put Boyata in beside Van Dijk. Mm-hmm. I thought when Boyata came back for the World Cup, his confidence was sky high and everything was first time and we were moving it. Maybe a wee bit better in the air than what Denier was. Mm-hmm. So I don't think much would get by the two. No. Play free at the back, it's a free room.
Yeah, let's do it. But then we need to find a place for Tierney somewhere. Right, so what I would say is that this has been great. It always is when you guys get involved. If there's any abusive comments coming through, let us know. We'll get them blocked. But we're coming up to kick-off, so we're going to get comfy, Stevie, and we'll see you all again at half-time.